Hello and welcome to the Social Marketing Academy. I'm your host, Christopher Tompkins. Today we're going to be talking about online advertising. And guess what? What is the ROI of online advertising? I'm going to tell you all about how you can figure that out in today's episode, which is going to be super duper useful. The reason why I'm covering this today is because one of the common questions that we have been receiving a lot at my sales and marketing agency, the Go Agency, is okay, what the heck am I doing with this online advertising? Why do I need to spend so much money? What am I supposed to be getting? All these other questions. So guess what? Let me lift the curtain, tell you what you need to be looking at so that you can make the right decision on your own online advertising budget and where you need to make your spends. So, folks, if you've been listening to the show for a while now, it's really great for you to come back. Thank you so much. Tell a friend. We've been doing this now for quite a few years, and the Social Marketing Academy is all about giving back to businesses out there and just sharing some of the things that we find every day in the Go Agency. The Go Agency, you can learn more about us online, thegoagencyusa.com. I really want to tell you to check out our blog page. It's fantastic because there are lots of great pieces of information as well as free ebooks for you to download. So don't neglect anything there. Just jump right in and devour as much as you want. It's there for you. Also, you can check out our podcast on demand anywhere podcasts can be found: Overcast, Stitcher, Apple, wherever you want to use. And we have a really great archive, lots of wonderful information, and we try to cover topics that are interesting to you. So if there's anything that you'd like us to cover in a future show, please just let us know. So let's just jump into the ROI of online advertising. I mean, I cover this subject, I'm not kidding you, on a daily basis, especially with prospective clients, if I'm doing some consulting as well, and even our current clients at the Go Agency. Sometimes they want to try something a little bit different with online advertising, and it always comes back to the same question: what is the ROI? Now, the thing is, when I hear questioning of the value of online advertising, I generally have an exact idea as to why it's coming up. ROI has never been proven. And guess why ROI has never been proven? Because nobody knows what the hell ROI is. Okay, so sounds a little bit harsh, maybe so, maybe not. I didn't come down in the last rainstorm, folks. We've been doing this for over 11 years at the Go Agency, and I've seen lots of trends, especially when you're looking at, I would say, on advertising, especially on social media. I think the ROI starts to get a little fuzzy right around there because the lines are a little bit more blurry. But how are you going to track ROI? Now, to help you understand the elements that go into your ROI equation, I want to explain some of the key areas that you need to consider before you start executing an online advertising campaign. And there are so many different components that you're going to want to track. So I have a couple key places that you should take a look at. But before we get into that, one of the things I want to let you know is if you are ever going to spend money for anything, in the wonderful world of marketing, which is where I live, my feet are firmly planted on the ground in that circle. Now, if you're going to be spending money on advertising it is built to gain sales or to build conversions, what you're going to want to do is be able to track those conversions and track the sales that are going to be generated from that. Okay, this makes sense, right? But what happens when the equation is a little bit more loose, so to speak? So let's say that one of the things that you're trying to do is to build more traffic to your website. That's a very cut and dry item. So if I'm going to be putting ads out online, the goal is for me to be tracking through to my website to get people there. So I can very easily check out those numbers. But here is where a lot of businesses go wrong, or they just feel like, you know what, I don't need to pay attention to it that much. In some businesses, it doesn't really matter that much, but in a lot of businesses, it matters a whole hell of a lot. Because if I'm spending $1,000 and I'm increasing my traffic by 50 visitors, that may not be what I need. Maybe I'm looking to get 3,000 more visitors for that $1,000 spend. How much are those visitors worth to me? Well, what if I don't know that? What if I don't understand how much my traffic is worth? What if I don't understand, and I hate to say this, folks, but this happens again and again. I see how much do you net off of an average client, and it's a hum and a hun, and I'm going to have to check my numbers. And these are things that we should know right off the bat if we're going to be doing online advertising. And the reason being is that it can be expensive. And advertising is something that's pretty elastic, right? You can spend more, spend less, depending on what you want. But at the end of the day, your spend is going to be in direct relation to the results that you want to be generating. So it's really important for you to be able to look at that full funnel or look at those conversions and understand what your outcomes are going to be. Now, if you're looking at, we always talk about KPIs, key performance indicators, and conversion goals when we're talking about client campaigns at the Go Agency. So what are yours? It's really a good idea for you to look at those prior to getting into an online advertising scenario. And here's why. Jumping into online advertising, you start looking at the minutia. You start looking at the creative. You start looking at the budgets. You start looking at the target audiences, and you get a little bit dispersed. Before you even do that, what goals do you want to do? What goals do you want to achieve, period? If you know what your goals are first, then all of the stages of that online advertising campaign that you're going to start executing is going to make sense because it's going to feed those goals. If you're like, okay, I just want to get some more traffic to my website, let's do some traffic ads on Facebook. Okay, yeah, I'm just going to put some copy here and just throw it out there and done. Good. And then like a month later, everyone says, well, what did you think about that Facebook campaign? Didn't work. Why? Why didn't it work? What didn't it do? And that's when people start having issues with advertising, because I've had clients previously that were not tracking some of their own website traffic because we didn't have access at the time to their back end. And an ad that we ran for $300 netted them $11,000 in sales. When I asked them if they were, how everything was going, like give us some updates, they said, nope, wasn't working. We didn't get one sale off of that. I was able to go in the back end and find that. Now, is that obviously that's not a real positive thing to happen to a client, but it's a great win. You can find out that, you really did affect a lot of sales. But this is what's really important. If you're going to be spending money and you are actually come on, if I would have known that campaign was so successful, I would have duplicated, I would have wrote down every single thing that I did so we could do it again, so we can keep getting that client tons of success. But it ran out of time, so it wasn't current anymore, so we weren't able to get that. So that lightning in a bottle that you're always trying to capture, you want to be able to monitor it on a daily basis. And again, you hear what I just said, daily basis. If I'm spending $10,000 in advertising, you bet your butt I'm going to be looking every single day to see where that money's going and what I need to do. And this is one of the things when you're managing online ads. When people say, yeah, well, we're going to get in there and we're going to tweak it as we need to, and we're going to kind of, do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Well, that's because we're seeing what works. We're looking at the data that's coming through against what your goals are. Maybe it's not converting. Okay, let's change the image. Let's change the copy. Let's do a new ad. Let's do something different. And that is so important, but you would never be able to do that if you didn't know what you were trying to aim for. So let's go into the first place that you can go in and find out how things are working for you. So Google Analytics is my top one. Number one, Google Analytics needs to be installed on your website. So it is by far the most powerful thing that you will need to track the ROI of online advertising. It's a tool installed to your website that measures all of the website traffic. It tells you where people came from, what visitors are viewing, like what pages they're taking a look at or what products, whatever. And it's going to help you track your sales conversions. Many companies believe that this tool is only useful if you're doing a specific like SEO campaign or Google pay-per-click, but that's wrong. Everyone can use it. It's a free tool, and it's not selling your soul to the devil, folks. Guess where you want to be? You want to be on the first page of Google search results, so why would you not use a Google tool to tell you how good your website is? I'm sorry. It's the truth. So it really is a valuable tool. So it's so easy for your designer, or even if you want to do it yourself, you can check out a YouTube tutorial on how to do it. It's really important for you to do it. One thing, I'm just going to have a little caveat. There are some website designers out there that really do enjoy other plugins and programs because they have a more streamlined interface and they're easier to read. I think that's wonderful, but Google Analytics is what you really need. So Get both. Because guess what? Google Analytics begins tracking from the day that you install it. It doesn't go like, let's see what happened in the last year. Sorry, folks, if it was installed, you're not getting the data. So just pop it in there. If you're not going to look at it, maybe you'll look at it in the future. Just give yourself a safety net, because all of the different tools that are out there for tracking analytics or whatever on your website aren't always built to last forever, whereas Google Analytics is pretty much the standard in website analytics. So just something to consider. The second thing that you want to really pay attention to is your online sales figures. Whether you're just using a shopping cart service like Shopify or WooCommerce, or another plugin to WordPress that your designer has popped out for you, you need to have a realistic view of your sales. Okay? Many times, since online sales can be automated for product-based companies mostly, not for service-based companies a lot of the time, you need to see as to where people are coming from, how many people are using your coupon codes, what are they? Did you know that nearly 100% of your clients think that their sales are coming from a different channel than they actually are? This is true. I have been on many calls with sales of product-based companies where I was doing consulting, and I said, "Hey, can I take a look in your back end? And I'm gonna come up with, what your true environment is." And I said, "Well, let's before I do that, you tell me a little bit more about your company, and let's talk about sales." They were off the mark on every one of their sales figures, and also where their sales are being generated from, how much return on investment they were getting for their advertising and their pay-per-click. Also, they didn't know how people were behaving on their websites, all of these different things. But because their websites were shopping carts, you could very easily run reports and see exactly what's going on. But they didn't have the notification set up. So they figured, my accountant's handling everything, and our suppliers and the people that are doing the shipping and stuff, they're doing fulfillment, so they have it all down pat. No, folks, you need to know this, because you need to be the one that's going to say, I want to put this much money into advertising, into the product that's winning, to the audience that was actually viewing that, and know what's going on. Because how many times have I heard, oh yeah, all of our sales come from Google. And then I go into their back end of their website, and I see that 80% of their traffic comes from Instagram, which is a very odd number. That's why that one sticks out at me, because it's usually not that high. But that's a number. That's a very specific number, and I would not sniff at that number. So you really want to be able to look in the back end of your website and be able to figure out exactly what you're selling. Going back to that one incident where the client didn't understand how many sales were coming from that one advertising campaign. If you were in charge of that and you really were driving that and you knew what your sales were, it would be a no-brainer for you to increase budgets and make more money. So this does hurt profitability if you're not sure how your online sales do work. So I feel that if you are uncomfortable with the platform that you're using currently for sales, you should maybe take a class or do some tutorials, or have your website designer or someone on your team show you how this works. Make sure your notifications are up to snuff. You really want to get a full picture on what's happening, especially if you're going to be the one that's going to be deciding on what kind of coupon code. This is another one. If we're coming up with coupon codes for products. What do you think about 20% off? I don't know. I don't really just think about that. I'm going to look at all the data to see what you used recently and which ones really did give you the best return on investment. And then we can decide from there. Again, these are things that come directly from your own facts and figures. So you can make really educated decisions based off of this. So don't forget that you have access to all of this information, and then just draw on assumptions. Because, for example, if you think that all of your all of your sales come from Google, that's not always the truth. And I would say 8 out of 10 companies that I've spoken to do say that. But when you look at it a little bit deeper, there's minutia that is very important and not to be ignored. The third one that I want to tell you about is tracking pixels. See, when I'm on a sales call with a prospect, retargeting is a request that I always hear. In order to properly retarget, you need to know two things: how many people go to your website, and where they are mostly coming from. So where the acquisition, where you're acquiring them, and obviously you need enough traffic to your website for people to be retargeted. And just so we're all on the same page, retargeting campaign is anyone that goes to your website after they leave, they start seeing your ads everywhere else. So it could be on social, it could be on third-party websites, on their phones, on their tablets, in between apps, all of that kind of stuff. Now that's a very, very positive thing to do, right? Because you get extra exposure for people that maybe didn't purchase whatever. But in order to track that traffic and have the opportunity to do that, you need to have tracking pixels installed into your website. Your website designer, again, should be able to do this. And also, there's YouTube tutorials for everything, folks. I mean, you don't need someone for everything, but if you have someone, use them. And so Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, IP retargeting services, geo-targeting services, there's so many pixels that can be installed that will give you lots of information about your audience, and it allow you to see what sort of audience that you're going to have in terms of number, what sort of spend that you're going to get, and what kind of results you can expect. So having those pixels installed immediately is great because, again, they're not going to go from all time. They're going to go for the last maybe 3 or 4 months, maybe at a maximum. So you want to be getting that going. So, for example, if you're thinking about doing some retargeting ads, IP retargeting ads, and you're getting 10 people to your website a week, you need a critical mass in order to start doing those retargeting. So it's nice for you to start collecting that audience ASAP so that if you do have a website with low traffic, you're able to jump on that advertising situation a little bit better. Also, that's going to give you, these details and these pixels are going to give you a really clear idea of how much money you should be spending and also how you can pivot your goals within your campaigns to really feed those advertising goals that you have, those KPIs, those goal conversions that you want to focus on. So I really do think that the 3 things that I would suggest is getting a good handle on Google Analytics, getting a good handle on your online sales figures and your offline sales figures and your margins. That'd be helpful too. And then obviously getting some pixels installed so that you can start tracking. Now, when I say all of this and it sounds like, oh my gosh, this is so much extra work. I'm sorry, this is the truth. You're going to have to put some effort into this and start small. I would say the first thing that I would want to do is understand how I can quickly read my Google Analytics for meaning. And then maybe what you want to do is not come up with 3 goals at once. Maybe you just want to start off with 1 goal for your online advertising. Maybe you have an email newsletter that you want to get more emails for. So you came up with a lead magnet that you're going to offer on your website, and people go to your website and download your free ebook /lead magnet, and then they convert. So you're going to do an advertisement promoting that. So maybe you want to get 20 of those and your budget's going to be $200, and then you can start testing it to see how that's going to go. I like to start with a small amount in a small amount of time and then scaling it from there. What you do not want to do is on your first outing for an online advertising, unless you're working with a company that is skilled in this, if you're doing it yourself, do it with a manageable budget and be able to track everything that you want in terms of results. So if I'm saying I'm going to spend $200 and I want to get 20 email addresses added to my email mailing list, I want to know what my starting number of emails are and what my end would be after I'm done with the campaign. So then I can very easily check that. It's easy analytics. That's easy numbers, right? You just look at your email marketing program. So long story short, folks, I really want you to understand that you need to be tracking online advertising in terms before you even start placing it. And this is such a boring answer. Like what's the ROI of online advertising? I think the ROI is basically figure it out before you get into it. And then you can see how you can affect the ROI by just going in and saying, hey, I get all my leads from Google. Facebook's dead. We don't get anything off of Facebook. And our website, we get tons of hits. And then you look at all of your data and it's totally contrary, which means that if you spend money based off of those assumptions, you're not going to realize the same results. So being realistic to yourself and also looking at facts and figures and numbers and not sentiment is a real win for you in terms of online advertising. Again, start small, start manageable, get goals that you can focus on, and then you're going to be good to go. Folks, thanks so much for joining me today on the Social Marketing Academy. Please do check out our blog. I've written a blog that's very similar to this episode that you can use as a reference tool. And it's all about the different things you should be checking for online advertising and ROI. And also, please feel free to subscribe. Sign up to our email newsletter that's on our website. We have some great incentives right now as well on our website for you to download. They are easily applicable and useful. And that's thegoagencyusa.com. And folks, thanks so much for joining me. Until the next time, check out our archive of shows anywhere podcasts are stored. And I'll talk to you next week. This is Christopher Tompkins for the Social Marketing Academy.